Hi, this is Amy Zamudio, and I am Director of Homeless Outreach for Housing for the Homeless. And we're having a real crisis out here on our streets of San Diego, specifically related to our elders who are experiencing homelessness. Our elders are being neglected, and they are lacking in access to reasonable accommodations. By that, I mean the seniors who are medically compromised are unable to go to the congregate tent shelters due to whatever medical conditions they have. We do have two county hotels, the Fairfield Inn and the Comfort Inn, which is an amazing project, and there are vacant rooms there. And we'd like to be able to continue to bring the seniors there, but we've been unable to. So if we're not able to access the program that was designed specifically for this population, we would like to get ongoing hotel vouchers for the medically compromised seniors while they wait on their housing match. This wait for housing can take upwards of a year, and they are too critically compromised to be left out here on the streets. I am constantly, daily rotating in and out of our local hospital emergency departments. The seniors are going from the streets to the ER, back to the streets. This is very taxing on our health system. This is very taxing for our EMTs to keep responding to these calls, when a lot of this could be mediated if they were already in a safe hotel room and not subjected to all of the elements of being out here on the streets, whether it's victims of violence, all kinds of stuff goes on. And we are asking, please, can we open up the vacant county hotel rooms? And again, if that is really not possible, can we get hotel vouchers for the seniors? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
And Chair Nash, we also have another member of the public that wishes to speak, Francine Maxwell, if you want to allow her 2 minutes.
Yes.
Narash, you want to allow Francine the ability to speak?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, she's allowed.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if it's on the agenda or not, so please just go ahead and stop me for my 2 minutes. Francine Maxwell, Chairwoman of Black Men and Women United. Concerned with the recent hate crime data, we are unable to obtain statistics for November of 2021 from the San Diego Police Department. So we're coming to the commissioners to ask if we can look at it countywide, of course, but specifically San Diego Police Department, that are saying that there's an 84% increase in hate crimes against African and African Americans. We have talked to our CROs, which are community resource officers, and they have yet to be able to give us statistics because they have not had permission. So we're coming to the commissioners to ask you for your due influence. Maybe if you request it, then we can get the statistics that we've been asking for November of 2021 and moving forward. We heard in the mayor's address some statistics, so we know that they exist, but because we have a strong former mayor government, he has to give permission for the statistics to be released. So we're asking the commission, if you can go countywide and let's look at the data for the hate crimes, specifically for Black Men and Women United. We would like to partner for the African and African American data, but all hate data, of course, is important. But because ours is 84% and nobody is talking about it, there's no PSAs about it, we are truly concerned. So I asked the commissioners if you could be of assistance. The chairwoman has my contact information, so does the executive director, Andrew Strong, and we look forward to partnering with you so that we can make sure that the community is educated and what to look out for and who to call, so that we can get these, this data down. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Francine.
And not seeing any additional speakers requesting to speak, Madam Chair, we can move on to the next item.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next item is Commissioner. Let's spend a few minutes discussing these public comments.
This is Commissioner Vice Chair Ramirez. I know that the mayor is in Washington, D.C. right now about funding for the homeless. I was wondering, is our guest speaker, is she still on? Because I was wondering if that, I know the federal government has earmarked quite a lot of money to San Diego, and I was wondering if part of that, they do make specifics that part of it was for seniors housing. Go.
So
Is she still
we're
on?
wondering where that money has gone. We are not seeing it matriculate actually to the seniors out here on the streets in need. Everybody has been asking. And I know that Serving Seniors is also has acknowledged that the congregate tent shelters are not an appropriate environment for the seniors. We know that there's a new policy in place with Cal Ames for medically compromised people experiencing homelessness. However, no one in the city or at the hospitals, I've spoken to social workers at Scripps and UCSD, has been able to successfully apply any senior for this program.
Thank you. I certainly, and I think those of us that have contacts with the mayor's office will ask concerning this funding, because I do recall, I think we all do, there was a big announcement of federal in the millions of dollars been earmarked to San Diego for the homeless. So we certainly will look into it, and I'm sure we'll get back to you. Second of all, about the police non-reports on hate crimes, especially affecting the African-American community. Tammy, do you get this? Does the ADL get the police and the district attorney? I know Summer, do you get the same reports that anyone else concerning the police department?
This is, if I may respond, this is Summer Steffen. So I think that what Francine Maxwell is saying is definitely a trend we have seen. I've actually put out the information publicly and tried to alert the public to it. The data that we have is that in 2021, we prosecuted 30 hate crimes, which is a very large increase from the 21 hate crimes we prosecuted in 2020. That's a very substantial statistical upwards. And the trend with Black and African American being the #1 target is also accurate. Of the 25 race-based hate crimes we prosecuted in 2021, 11 were anti-Black African American, 5 anti-Hispanic, 3 anti-Asian, 1 anti-Arab, and then other categories. With the second hate crimes category being religion-based, with our Jewish neighbors being the highest target. If the prosecution trends match the law enforcement trends, which I would tender an educated guess that they should, then we would see an increase in hate crimes and an increase in anti-Black African American hate crimes.
And this is Tammy Gillies from the ADL. I would just like to connect with Francine Maxwell, because the San Diego Regional Anti-Hate Crimes Coalition does, we can do a webinar around hate crimes, what they are, how to report them. And so educating the community about hate crimes, and that's something that the coalition would really welcome doing. So maybe we can connect about that.
This is Commissioner Khoury. We are aware of many more than just one against the Arab community in general, but the Arab community, most of whom are refugees, seldomly among, also of course the Muslim community, seldomly come forward with any discrimination. And I know that we were working on a couple of forums for the Muslim and Arab communities in East County, along with Leonard from your office, Commissioner Stefan. in order to do some presentations to our communities as to regard hate crimes and hate incidents.
This is
Commissioner Curry,
Vice Chair Ramirez. Is the District Attorney's Office or the ADL, are you guys working on anything alerting the African American, more of an educational thing, public announcements like on the television, radio, because obviously these rise against the African community, the Jewish community, and so forth are very concerning. So do you have something that you're going to do or working on? I'm just curious.
we do many, this Commissioner Stefan, we do many educational forums, but you know what we've noticed is it's better if the organizer comes from that community and partners with us, then it's a lot more effective. We did many of them with the Asian community. We'd be very, very glad and honored to partner with our African American community, maybe through the Women and Men United. Be happy to, and also with the, as Commissioner Curry mentioned, I think it's in progress in the East County to partner on the anti-Arab hate. So you just have to reach out to us. And also, as Commissioner Gillis mentioned, we have a very robust hate crimes coalition that can help on all aspects. So
all right, thank you very much.
This is Amy Zamudio. May I speak again regarding hate crimes?
Yes.
So thank you, Summer Stefan, and thank you, Francine Maxwell. I have spoken to Chief Deputy DA Dwayne Woodley about this. Many of our unhoused Black neighbors are victims of hate crimes. I actually have Mr. Charles Paul, who is a senior veteran in a hotel right now, and he is the victim of a hate crime and elder abuse by a white supremacist in Pacific Beach. And we tried to turn the video over to San Diego Police Department, but the police department says they didn't get the right video. So this Black senior veteran lives in fear constantly out here on the streets of San Diego. Many of our unhoused neighbors who are Black are very scared to report the hate crimes. I've spoken to Dwayne Woodley about this, and we know we need them to report, but they are scared for their lives, and this is a huge mess. I have documented photo after photo of victims of abuse, and they say to me, we are too scared to call the police.
Okay, thank you, Amy, for that information.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I would like to make a couple of comments in regards to the homeless situation with the medically compromised seniors. It is actually a crisis, a community crisis, where you have seniors that are being actually dropped off in the streets after they leave the emergency rooms here in San Diego with no options. Shelters are not an option for these medically compromised seniors. Shelters are not an option due to safety, from robberies to sexual assault, to even basically unable to physically, say, climb up in a bunk bed. Amy, thank you for bringing this to my attention. Commissioners, it is a crisis. The option on the table right now, immediate option, is are the hotels. Some of us have even started a GoFundMe because the county's bureaucracy moves too slow. And we see immediately firsthand that these elders are subject to only the streets, and these hotels would at least give them some safety. They could be provided medical attention, caseworker kind of support that at least would move them temporarily into the county hotels is what we're asking for. And then possibly other options for permanent housing as well. I've talked with some of the county staff. I've been told that they're going to get back to me with answers and solutions. This has been an ongoing issue that was brought to my attention over the holidays. when we had all of that heavy rain, the weather, and some of these seniors were actually on the streets, sitting out in pouring rain. These are, we're only talking about under Amy's program, no more than 100 medically compromised seniors. I know the homeless problem is enormous. Churches, we do shoe drives, we do food drives, we feed the homeless, we give them clothes. They are still on the streets, and that's inhumane. But we're only talking about 100 medically compromised seniors. I've witnessed it myself, seeing some of them, and this is an inhumane crisis that we're under right now. So commissioners, we wanted to bring this to your attention and ask for your support in helping us get these minimal 100 seniors off the street so that we can at least get them into these county hotels and they could be provided the attention that they rightly deserve. African Americans, veterans, it's a diverse group that we have a responsibility to help them stay alive. One death that's being reported every day, to stay alive and off these streets. And the only option right now that we know of is county hotels. That's what I wanted to bring to your attention. In regards to the hate crimes, Summer last year, you did a presentation to us on this particular issue. And I thank Francine Maxwell for bringing it to our attention again. It seems like there's been an increase since your presentation, Commissioner Summer Stephan. And we need to look into this in BAPAC. As chair of BAPAC, we also stand ready and willing to support this effort in whatever organization that's working on it. We stand ready also to support these particular issues. Hate crimes apply to African Americans, Africans, but also and we're seeing hate, the elevation of hate across the board. I would like to stop here and give Tammy a few minutes to talk about the synagogue hate crime that occurred over the weekend, to weigh in on that. Thank you, Tammy. Commissioner Gillies.
Thank you so much, Ellen, and thank you for giving me just an opportunity to talk for 2 minutes about the hostage taking at the synagogue outside of Dallas this past weekend. We were very relieved and happy that there was a positive outcome for the hostages. But I will share for this commission that a couple of thoughts. One is that all of us should be able to go to our houses of worship and feel safe. Wherever that is, whoever we pray to, we should all be able to be safe. Another point that I would like to make is that I hope that this incident will help to create more and better conversations between the Jewish community, the Jewish American community, and the Muslim American community, and not allow this to divide us, as I'm seeing on social media. So I really hope for that. And then as a commission, I think we have to think about our own safety once we get back to meeting in person. And I would like our chair and perhaps this commission to think about in-person meetings. We know that things have gotten very heated in a lot of our Board of Supervisors meetings, and we have to think of our safety. So I would recommend that we work with our FBI, our law enforcement friends, to train us on these type of situations. We've done in the past active shooter trainings. Because we're not together, I really say watch the Run, Hide, Fight video, or whatever the latest version of that is from the FBI, because these hostages freed themselves. They weren't freed by the police. They weren't freed by the hostage taker. They knew what to do because of training. They did it. And they saved themselves. So I think sadly in these times, we all have to know what to look for and how to protect ourselves in these types of situations. And particularly as commissioners, I do hope that when we get back to meeting in person also, that this would be a great interfaith project, an intergroup project. ADL has done these trainings before for all faith communities, and I'd like to see us work on doing that again for our own safety and the safety of our congregations. So thank you, Chairwoman Nash, for allowing me a few minutes to talk about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillies. We're going to move on because that was part of our public comment at 15 minutes and we want to remain on time. I now want to go to agenda item 6, our Border Patrol obstruction of justice in the local use of force cases, presented by Alliance San Diego, our own Executive Director, Andrea Guerrero. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ellen.
And I believe, Andrea, welcome. I believe you have a presentation that you'd like to share,
Yes.
and we can give you ability to share your screen.
That would be great.
Okay.
Let me know when I have that ability. I might have it already. Let's see, I am having trouble sharing. I'm wondering if someone from your team who has the presentation can share. And I can guide through.
Yeah, I do. So give me 1 second. I'll pull it up for you, okay? Can you see that okay? Is this your presentation?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, and
All
if you can put it in presentation mode, feel free.
I'm sorry, it's actually a PDF that we received, so.
Yeah, but yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need all the bars, but we can do. If you could go to the top, that'd be great.
Let's see.
Just scroll up on your scroll bar. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your time this morning. I am Andrea Guerrero. I'm the Executive Director at Alliance San Diego, and we are a member of the Southern Border Communities Coalition. And so today I wanted to talk to you about the importance of protecting our community from abusive border agents. You can go to the next slide. So the question that I bring to you today is, who should be investigating US border agents when they harm and kill in our community? Next slide. And the answer should be independent investigators, not other border agents. Next slide. Public trust depends on investigative integrity, and that requires excluding border agents who have no authority to investigate themselves and prosecuting them when they obstruct justice in our community. This picture is a picture of survivors here in San Diego of loved ones who have been killed by border agents. Next. I want to draw your attention in particular to Anastasio. Anastasio Hernandez Rojas was a longtime resident here in San Diego, a loving father of 5, a community member, a beloved brother, son, friend, and neighbor. He built pools. Here's one of the pools that he built. And in May 2010, he was brutally beaten and tortured by border agents and died. STPD investigated the homicide, but the Border Patrol Critical Incident Investigative Team, which is also called SIT, interfered. Next. SITs, what are they? They are cover-up teams that allow border agents to get away with everything, including murder. Next. In Anastasio's homicide, CITs or SITs controlled police access to information They withheld and corrupted evidence. They destroyed video footage. They intervened in witness interviews. They altered government documents. They illegally acquired medical records, and they intruded in the autopsy. How do we know this? Because we have the San Diego investigative report, and we see all of this in their report, and we also see it in Border Patrol's own documents. Despite all of this, no border agent has been held accountable. Next slide. At the time of the incident, James Tomczyk was the Assistant Commissioner for Internal Affairs. He was the head of that department. He was aware of the cover-up in this particular case. He ended up resigning as a result of it, and he says publicly that Border Patrol tried to cover up what happened in the case. And then he goes on to say that the injustice of the Anastasio case was not an isolated incident. The abuse, the corruption, and the impunity has happened again and again and will continue to happen until something changes. Next. In the last 100 years, since Border Patrol was formed in 1924, no border agent has ever been convicted for killing a community member, ever. Let me say that again. No border agent has ever been convicted for killing a community member, ever. Next slide. According to federal data, there are an average of 500 use of force incidents a year in the United States, including killings. According to their own data, few are disciplined, and the SITs play a pivotal role in protecting agents at the expense of the public. And I want to pause here to say that not all border agents are bad, but when bad agents are allowed to get away with everything, that undermines the integrity of the agency. Next slide. What you should know about the Border Patrol SITs is that they have no statutory authority to investigate use of force. They are not internal affairs units. They are not criminal investigators. They are not neutral fact finders. Their stated purpose is to collect evidence to protect the agency and agents from civil liability. There is no analog for this role anywhere else in law enforcement in the United States. Next. According to their own documents, SITs were first established here in the San Diego sector in 1987 to, quote, investigate agency-related critical incidents on behalf of the chief. These units are composed of Border Patrol agents, and they answer to the Assistant Chief Patrol Agent here in the sector and a Special Operations Supervisor. SITs are unlike, and these are their own words, SITs are, quote, unlike an internal affairs division of a police agency, and instead are an investigative unit engaged in the mitigation of civil liability. I want to let that sink in for a second. These are tax-funded law enforcement agents who have taken it upon themselves to collect evidence in order to protect agents from possible liability, whether that's prosecution or a civil lawsuit. That is unheard of anywhere else in law enforcement. Next. James Wong, the former CBP Deputy Assistant Commissioner for Internal Affairs when the Anastasio incident happened, who also left the agency in part because of the lack of integrity in the agency with regard to these SIT teams, had this to say. The purpose of an investigation is to collect facts. Investigators should never set out to mitigate liability. That is inappropriate. Given that Border Patrol SITs have worked to mitigate instead of collect facts leading to the truth, shows they are not a legitimate investigative tool, and as such, they should be abolished. Next slide. So Anastasio's family seeks justice. They seek prosecution of the SIT agents who covered up Anastasio's killing, and Maria, the widow, is joined by community members in seeking an end to the SITs altogether. They are at the heart of harmful impunity that has let agents get away with everything for decades. Next slide. So what is the first step that we can take here locally? Locally, law enforcement must say no to Border Patrol sit and evidence collection teams that get involved in investigations of border agents. That is, by any measure, a conflict of interest. And prosecutors must bring criminal charges against sit agents for obstruction of justice under state law. They are not immune from prosecution because they have no federal authority to exist. They have no immunity. They must be held to account. Next. Let me reiterate here that SITs have no authority to investigate. The Border Patrol authority is limited under federal law to the interdiction of people and goods. They do not have general law enforcement, nor do they have criminal investigative powers. Those powers are granted by Congress to agencies like the FBI or under state law to the police, but they are not granted to Border Patrol, any part of it, including SITs. SITs and other evidence collection teams operated by Border Patrol are not recognized in federal law at all. They are an informal fabrication of Border Patrol that does not exist in federal law. They're not authorized anywhere in federal law. They have operated in the shadows until now. Next. Anastasio's case exposed the SITs, and now the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights is reviewing them in the first ever case of extrajudicial killing in the United States. Actually 5 congressional oversight committees are investigating them. National and local media are now scrutinizing them. But you should know that Border Patrol SITs still operate in the shadows. They have many names, and those are detailed in a letter that we sent to Congress. But these evidence collection teams still operate today here in San Diego. Next. So it is no surprise that Anastasio's family and the community seek help. More than 160 people have died in fatal encounters with border agents since 2010. These are the people that we are aware of. There may be more. That's an average of 15 people a year who are dying in fatal encounters with the Border Patrol and other border agents. Next. In a poll conducted by UCSD in 2019, we learned that more California voters distrust than trust that Border Patrol agents will protect their civil liberties. Next. And few trust that Border Patrol agents who abuse their authority will be held accountable. I think that's really important for us to understand, especially for law enforcement, local law enforcement, to understand that there is a crisis of trust in Border Patrol because of this failure of accountability. 1,000 California voters, so these are all US citizens, were surveyed and they were asked this question: how much trust do you have that Border Patrol agents who abuse their authority will be held accountable for their abuses? And many more said a little or none at all, than said a great deal or a moderate amount. Next. So what are other people saying about SITs? Well, the New York Times just published an article last week stating that there's no public description of their authority anywhere in federal law. Chuck Wexler from the Police Executive Research Forum, who did an audit of the agency now 9 years ago, said if we knew more earlier about these, we would have raised red flags. Incidentally, when Chuck asked about these SITs during the audit, instead of explaining what they were, Border Patrol simply removed any mention of them in their communication with Chuck Wexler. And then recently, California Senator Alex Padilla, in a judiciary hearing in the Senate, raised the issue, raised his concern specifically about Anastasio Hernandez Rojas, and said there are serious questions that have to be answered. Next. So this is what I want to leave you with. The imperative of protecting our community from abusive agents necessitates that investigations be independent and obstruction prosecuted. These are steps that can be taken at the local level through local law enforcement and through the district attorney's office. If you were not previously aware of SITs, you are now. You are now, and it is imperative that we take care in how they engage and make sure that they are not involved in local law enforcement investigations of border agents. There is no integrity if those investigations are not independent. I'm happy to answer questions about this. We have detailed information about this, and that I'm happy to provide for public record in the form of a letter, the letter we sent to Congress, as well as the letter that we sent to the district attorney detailing specifically the Anastasio case. I see there are hands raised. I'm not sure how you all want to handle that. If there's a facilitator, or if I should just call on folks. I'm happy to call on folks. Imam Taha?
Yes, thank you, Andrea, for this presentation. And I would like to echo every single word you have said and to validate all the concerns, specifically the case of Anastasio Rojas, which is a case that I've been involved with since it happened. Unfortunately, I've been with his family in the Congress. Here is the picture of me and some activists from here in San Diego, Rabbi Lori Koski, my dear friend Christian Ramirez, and many other activists from here from San Diego. And it is really, really sad to see after all these years that no one, absolutely no one has been held accountable for this horrible crime that happened right here in our neighborhood. In addition to this, this is not the only case, Andrea, and everybody knows. At this moment, there is a big problem when it comes to the Friendship Park at the US-Mexican border, a place that was inaugurated in 1971 by the First Lady Nixon at that time, with the intention to be a place where families from both sides can come together. It has been the case until the beginning of COVID. We understand the concerns of the pandemic, but now the CBP and the border patrols, they refuse to open again the Friendship Park. They are depriving family members coming from all over the US to come and see their loved ones through that tiny fence. So this is also another concern that I would like to raise at this moment. Again, thank you, Andrea, and may God bless the work that you and Alliance is doing.
Thank you so much, Imam Taha. I see there's a George Corey.
George Corey.
Good morning, Andrea. Thank you very much. It's an excellent presentation, brought to our attention things that some of us didn't know. Actually, I have two questions because I'm asking them out of ignorance. The first question is, I know that many of our law enforcement have something called qualified immunity. Does that also cover the border agents in general, or it does not? Do you know of that? Because this is something that I think is enshrined by Congress in law that we are trying to change if we can, and it should change. That's the first question. My second question is, we know that many border police leaders have been sent to Israel for training. And I wanted to ask you if you know of any that have been sent from San Diego border So these are my two questions to you. I
Yes.
would really appreciate it.
Thank you for your question. I'll start with the latter. We're talking about, there are lots of issues and concerns with Border Patrol, but specifically the issue I bring to you today is the question of these critical incident investigation teams, CITs, which are known by many names. They are a creation of Border Patrol. We do not know of any analog to these units anywhere in other law enforcement agencies. They are the creation of Border Patrol. They don't exist in California law enforcement. They don't exist in any other federal law enforcement. They are unique, they are rogue, and they may be the largest and longest standing shadow police unit operating in the federal government today. Which brings me to my second point, which is, are they immune? And the answer to that is no, they are not immune from, immunity comes up in the question of civil litigation, right? They are not immune in civil litigation, and nor should they be allowed to get away with impunity in criminal prosecutions, because they do not have federal authority. So in general, the rule about immunity and impunity, well, immunity, I should say, is that if you are operating within the scope of your federal authority or your state authority, then you can be immune from liability as a law enforcement officer. But in this case, the CITs are not immune because they have no authority. Congress never gave them the authority to do what they are doing. They took it upon themselves. They have asserted authority that they do not have. Therefore, they are not immune from prosecution, and they should not be immune from civil litigation. Kate.
Thank you, Andrea. Really appreciate the presentation. I have one question that may lead to another. So what has been your communication? I know that in the past, like when incidents happen in our community or in the sector, that oftentimes there's been an immediate sort of flag to the sheriff's department, to the city, SDPD and others to get involved. So I'm just curious if you could speak a little bit more about what the results of your communication has been, and then maybe another follow-up question after you answer that.
Sure. Yeah. So communication with law enforcement has been happening from top to bottom, right? We have an open dialogue with Customs and Border Protection and Department of Homeland Security about these units. I have to be honest, the first time I brought to the attention to CBP leadership in DC our concerns about these units, current leadership was not aware of them. So they had to go to school themselves, because CITs, as I said before, they're not part of the recorded structure of units. I mean, DHS has a catalog of 500 pages of acronyms of units within DHS. These units do not appear in them at all, right? And so unfortunately, because Border Patrol has been very secretive about these units, not much is known outside of Border Patrol about them. But recent cases such as that of Anastasio, court records, which have revealed quite a bit about how they operate, and now some internal whistleblowers have revealed what we know about the CITs, which is detailed and sourced meticulously in letters to Congress, and we are happy to provide those. Locally, what has our communication been? Our communication has been primarily with SDPD, which has been the investigating law enforcement agency in some of the cases that we've been tracking on. And unfortunately, they have deferred. They have assumed that because the CIT teams are there, that they are authorized under federal law to be there. And, I can understand why they would want to do that. And the San Diego police chief has said, look, it's not my job to vet federal agents to find out if they have authority to be here in the investigation. On the one hand, I can appreciate that, that he's got a job to do, and that's extra work for him. But on the other, These are unauthorized federal agents who are getting involved in the investigation of their own colleagues, which is a conflict of interest by any measure. And then more recently, we've sent a letter to the district attorney. I'm glad to see her here, outlining our concerns, because we think that the district attorney has a role to play in investigating and prosecuting obstruction of justice. In all the cases, the Anastasio case is the one where we have a lot of information and we have brought to her attention, and we're hopeful that that she will look into that case, and we are here to help her do that. That case in particular is very close to the community because Anastasio was a member of the community. There's a mural erected in Chicano Park to the fight for justice in that case. And that case is the first ever to reach the Inter-American Commission and to address the issue of extrajudicial killings. And that issue in that case is not just simply what happened and who used force, but what happened after that force was used. What was the cover-up and who was engaged in allowing this impunity to persist? We would love for the Inter-American Commission to see that here locally in San Diego, that local law enforcement and local prosecutors understand what their role is to hold these agents accountable under state law.
Thanks, Andrea. No other questions, but just really a comment for my colleagues that we act with urgency with the suggestions that Andrea provided from Alliance San Diego. I think we're unique in that we're a border human relations commission, as our county, of course, it is on the US-Mexico border. Many of our community members are binational. They go back and forth every single day. And this challenge, this significant challenge, impacts all of our community. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. Are there other questions? I'd be happy to answer now or offline later. And Kate reminds me that I should mention that the victims of border agent violence have been citizens, have been migrants, have been residents, they have been women, they have been children, they have been men. They have occurred near the actual physical border. They have occurred in our neighborhoods, like they did in, like when a US citizen woman was killed outside of an apartment building in Chula Vista. They happen throughout our region because that's where border agents operate. And I learned in school that absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what's happening to this agency, which is under, the lack of accountability undermines their integrity. We cannot let the impunity persist. There are state laws that prohibit Border Patrol from doing what they're doing, from obstructing justice, and they should be held accountable under our own state laws.
Madam Chair, you also have a Michelle Celery and a Billy Johnson with their hands up. And I believe those are members of the public.
Okay. Let them speak.
Andrea, I had a question. Has any prosecutor ever held charges against them for obstruction of justice? Any of agents of the SIT teams?
There have been attempts, mostly out of Arizona, from the prosecutors there. And that's an exercise in seeing how these SIT teams work to undermine the integrity of the investigations. Those attempts have been brought all the way to Congress, with local prosecutors asking Congress to hold hearings. Unfortunately, in one of the few instances where obstruction charges were brought and prosecuted, President Trump pardoned the offenders. So even though the prosecutors did their very best Herculean work to bring obstruction charges, those individuals were pardoned by the former president.
Any other questions for Andrea?
Yeah, Billy Johnson, a member of the public.
Okay.
Hi, Billy Johnson, Black Men United. and Women United. Have you ever heard of Smuggler's Gulch? For years, it was on the other side of the border where migrants were being preyed upon by illegal gangs or illegal, were just being preyed on by crime. And same thing when they get on this side, it seems like they're being preyed upon as far as at the mercy of the smugglers and I'm sure other people. There's always been a thing where, you know, they migrants would work and then they would be deported or they wouldn't be paid or held up. Is there any kind of cooperation between the two governments trying to protect migrants' rights and migrants' crimes on migrants, either by the smugglers from or even people here as far as working rights? But I'm just saying that it just breaks my heart to hear of how they're being systematically preyed upon, but it seems like there's no cooperation between our two nations to deal with that issue.
Well, that's an important issue that you raised, Billy, and I think that's a subject that perhaps the commission could take up another day. That's a whole conversation unto itself. Today, the issue I bring before the commission is the issue of impunity of border agents who are allowed to get away with everything, including murder, because they are investigating themselves. They are interfering with local police investigations. And that issue is something that we have to be very concerned about. If we're concerned about the mistreatment of the Haitians in Del Rio, if we're concerned about the mistreatment of migrants, if we're concerned about the mistreatment of residents and citizens who live here in our community by border agents, we have to make sure that any investigation of their use of force is done independently, not by other border agents who make up the SIT teams. Estella?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea, for the compelling presentation. And I applaud Alliance San Diego for bringing this issue to the commission. And I just want to say, as a commissioner, I'd like to encourage RDA to further look into the investigation and the request of the Alliance to please also, as commissioners, to support anything that we can do to ensure that this doesn't occur again. You know, being the largest border in the entire United States, we are at risk here. And I know that there's numerous of cases that have been already occurred, but I also want to just encourage us to keep in mind that we have to address this. We cannot have any more Anastasio Rojas cases. Thank you again, Andrea, for all that you've doing, because I know that this is an ongoing case and you have really taken it and not letting it go. And I applaud you for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you to the commission and to the district attorney. Thank you for what you do to maintain the integrity of investigations. I recognize that this issue may be new for you. We are here for you as a resource and can provide any information that would be helpful to your further inquiry into this issue.
Thank you, Andrea, for this compelling, presentation. Yeah.
Sorry, there were two people speaking at once, Ellen and the district attorney. I didn't catch the district attorney.
No, I just said, thank you very much. Like you said, we received your letter recently and I appreciate this presentation to the commission today.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, District Attorney, and thank you, Chairwoman Nash, for allowing me to have some time with you today. I appreciate it.
Yes, my question is, in order to bring closure, what action should the Human Relations Commission take today to support this effort? We do have, of course, subject matter experts here, particularly our own District Attorney Summer Stephan, and we also have a public safety subcommittee as well. And I'm trying to figure what our outcome could be in terms of our support of this particular compelling argument that you made about our border agents and the mistreatment of our residents.
That's a great question. I think there are two things that could happen. One, there's an education piece about these SITs that local law enforcement doesn't really know whether they have authority or not. They are, and I think there's an education component of bringing to their attention what I have brought to your attention, and perhaps you could consider hosting something, a conversation with them, or or sharing information from what I have shared with you today. The second component is exercising your own form of accountability and asking the Border Patrol chief to come in and speak to you and ask him to answer for these units who have changed names over time, but they are still evidence collection units, right? And so getting your understanding, your own understanding of whether they are in fact, as they were quoted in the New York Times last week as doing, whether they are in fact gathering evidence to protect agents from civil liability. That is not a best practice. That's far from it. That is a conflict of interest for a DHS official to state in the New York Times in 2022 that that's what they're doing, and for them to think that's okay and that should go unanswered, that this commission can exercise its role of accountability and ask the Border Patrol chief to come in and answer for that. Okay. I think that would be very interesting, and put to him, the questions about, is that a legitimate, do you see that as a legitimate law enforcement purpose paid by taxpayers? And are there analogs? And, any other question you have, because we're having a very calm conversation right now, but this is so off the mark for law enforcement. This is so egregiously wrong by any measure that I think it deserves this commission's attention. The Border Patrol, the larger CBP, but Border Patrol in particular is the largest law enforcement agency in San Diego. It's twice as big as SDPD. And so we have to be concerned with use of force and whether this agency is held to account.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments?
Chair Nash, it looks like Billy Johnson, I believe, has his hand up again. If you want to allow him to speak again.
Okay, because we really need to take time for the other agenda items, but I want to bring closure to this item in terms of as an action item. So my recommendation, and fellow commissioners weigh in, is this something that we can partner with our public safety committee to do the research in consultation with Commissioner Stephan to bring back to us as a formidable or palatable action item where the outcome may be the education component, and also bringing the Chief of Border Patrol back to this body, and then coming out with some sort of a statement that needs to be made as a part of the commission. Would you support that action item, Commissioner Stephan?
Chair Nash, I don't think I would be able to do that because I'm being asked to take a look at a matter, and As in anything, if I'm, let's say, hypothetically working with the U.S. attorney, or if hypothetically I've sent the item for further analysis by the U.S. attorney that initially took jurisdiction on this case, to make sure that any new information is looked at, I would be compromising anything. I wouldn't be the right person to be involved, because there is actually something that's being requested of me.
Okay, okay. So the next ask is having the Chief of Border Patrol speak to this body. If everyone is in agreement, does this require a vote? We'll just have our Andrew's capable staff to pursue a time that the Chief of Border Patrol is available. And maybe our public safety subcommittee can do the research, come up with the questions, and bring him to this body, and have the Public Safety Committee facilitate that particular conversation.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, as the chair of the Public Safety Committee, we had that on the agenda already to invite the Border Patrol. And so I will make sure that we put this on our agenda for our next meeting and take care of the questions, because we've already had a panel on police departments for research. So this is a perfect segue into letting you know this was our next agenda item to address, so that we could have Border Patrol address the issues here in our border.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner De Los Reyes. Perfect.
Chair Nash, you also have Commissioner Gillies and Commissioner Corey's hands up.
Okay. In that order.
I'll be quick. I wonder if the Public Safety Committee subcommittee could invite either Andrea or someone from her team to come and help us formulate, maybe dig a little bit deeper and get the appropriate questions, so that when we do meet with Border Patrol, we are really confident that we're getting the right answers that we need. So just a recommendation.
Absolutely, Commissioner Gillis, absolutely.
Commissioner Corey?
Actually, Commissioner Gillis deflated me. I was about to say the same thing that she said. I would like to have Andrea join the committee, come and meet with us, or virtually or whatever, in our next meeting, in order to go ahead and prepare for something like this, in order to get the border chief or whoever is responsible, along with the SIT, if there are people that are within SIT, because I personally don't know all that mechanism internally, and I'd like Andrea to be more of a guiding light for us and the committee as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Andrea, thank you for bringing this to our attention. When you made that phone call to me, I immediately wanted to add that to the agenda, because it's very disturbing with an outcome of people being, with outcome of death of any of our residents, yet alone hurt and harmed. So we will definitely reach out to you for more information, and we will support this particular effort indeed. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
We're now going to move on to agenda item number 7, but we want to tuck that in with agenda item number 8, where our subcommittees can update us, a quick update on from our subcommittees on the status. I think Commissioner De Los Reyes has already given us some of the things that they're working on. So Commissioner De Los Reyes, you want to kind of start us out in regards to the Public Safety Committee that you chair. Thank you for your work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Nash. As I mentioned, we've been working on having presenters come in to give us a synopsis of what the public safety means in the police department arena. We were going to explore again the Border Patrol. We're just exploring and researching and educating so that we can come back to the commission and give a presentation on what the findings are. So right now, our next meeting is in February. We will meet and convene then, and I will reach out to Andrew to see if I can get Andrea's contact to see if she's available to come and present that day and join us so that we can have a larger conversation. So that's where we're at the Public Safety Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. The annual awards committee. Vice Chair Nicole, do you want to share some comments with us? I don't think we really did an update on where the status of our awards, wonderful award ceremony. Any comments? Did he hear me?
I was just checking. I think he may have left the meeting.
Oh, he may have left? Okay. Yeah. Well, I can certainly make some comments. It was a great awards ceremony. It was very powerful. We received a lot of publicity from the media. We thank you, media, for publicizing this wonderful event. I think our own, especially our own former Board of Supervisors, the Honorable Leon Williams, was elated. He was very responsive. I think the timeliness of it in his honor was appropriate and perfect, given he is in his young age of 99 years old. And I think the awardees that were there, particularly the young people that we were able to give awards, were so impressive. It was such an honor to be in their presence, yet alone the awards given to our own Board of Supervisors, Nora Vargas, and our Director of Public Health, Dr. Wilma Wooten. So it was a great event. Thank you all. I want to thank the committee we put this, I'm not going to say we threw it together. We put this event together in short of 30 days or less. And it was excellent. I'm looking forward to next year and working on that particular event. If we could go on and talk about if we could go to the youth committee. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And I'm asking it out of ignorance. If I want to forward to many different groups the website or the URL for them to access that, since we streamlined it, it's already recorded, it's somewhere, I think, in the system that they can access. Can we ask staff to send to the commissioners? It's because I would like to have the URL to send to our, to my contacts to go ahead and look at it. Advertising it in the public is going to help us a lot in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We absolutely can send that to you. And there's also a really good news story that Channel 10 did on it that will include a link to that too as well. It was really well viewed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Great. Our youth subcommittees. My chair here, Kate Chasen? No? Kate Chasen is a senior in high school. And she will be graduating in June. And so she and I and Commissioner Anaya met a couple of weeks ago, and it's a couple of ideas. The staffing of that commission needs to be completed. So we wanted to appeal to commissioners to reach into your organizations and identify youth leaders to participate in the Youth Commission. I think we have maybe 2, maybe 3 actual Board of Supervisor youth vacancies. I don't recall which Board of Supervisors, but I know there are at least 2 or 3 vacancies. So what we would like to do is create a list from the names of the commissioners, names of young people that the commissioners bring forward to us to be to make recommendations to those board of supervisors that, number one, have vacancies, and number two, use that list also to further complement the youth commission in that regard. We also are looking at the reason why it's so important to create that youth commission right away in regards to the responses to some of the hate incidents that are occurring in our schools. And we want to immediately start creating town halls or a forum or programs where, for instance, bringing our youth leaders across the county together, particularly in our schools, to do some work around how to respond in a positive manner to incidents of hate and disruption.
Chair Nash,
yeah.
I have a question.
Yes,
I had already, about 2 months ago, I had sent 3 names of youth who represent organizations within our community at the time to Claudia. And if I recall, I may have copied you at the same time. I'm asking Andrew if she still has those emails or those names in order to go ahead and contact them, because they are in East County and other places, but they are very influential within the youth organizations that I know of.
Okay.
Let me double check with Claudia, see if I can find those names. And what we'll do is we'll send out specific links into applications so they can apply to be on the HRC and participate if they like. And also the supervisor district is District 1 and District 2, Chair Nash.
District 1 and District 2, okay.
And I see Commissioner Anaya's hand.
Yes, Commissioner Anaya.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I think, thank you for bringing this up. I think I'd like to challenge our commission here to go maybe one step further, and be it not so much submitting names, but reach into your organizations, reach into your affiliate organizations, and assist in getting the existing applications out to these individuals, and if needed, working with them to complete and submit the official application. Because it's the same application we all filled out. It's no different. And then we could work with Andrew to separate out those that may qualify for the empty seats, so that then we can advocate either through the chair or a group of us with the existing supervisors to expedite their appointment, because if their issue is lack of a potential applicant, we can solve that for them ourselves and move that forward. But more so, part of our discussion 2 weeks ago with the chair of the Youth Commission is that for her vision to move forward, it is going to require much more than just the official appointed youth commissioners, but a network of youth that she can tap into. So even if these youth are not appointed that the commission identifies, it can create a database, because these meetings are open. You don't have to be a commissioner to attend this subcommittee. So in many ways, I always use the baseball analogy. We can set up our AAA team for our next batch of youth commissioners, getting them involved now, not just as a future commissioner, but in the implementation of whatever programs that staff and youth commissioners do together. And that can be done. Our chair mentioned that our youth commissioner right now is months from graduating. And we had a very frank discussion about, like, she will not get to see the results of her work while she is in this position. She may have to come back from college and see her main job and her main role is to establish the sustainability of this commission and the future of this commission, so that her vision as chair can happen a year from now. And so what I would request of our commissioners is that we each identify to young people within our network. Doesn't matter what district they're in, because eventually the youth commissioners will graduate and move on. So we should have an internal list continuously going and continue to invite these young people to participate in more than just being a commissioner, but it establishes that core group. Because there is a lot of, and based on our discussion, there's a lot of ideas, and it's going to take. Furthermore, I think, and not to put anyone on the spot, but we really think we discussed at our little small group that you know, these are students. They need a dedicated staff member to them that can help facilitate and guide their conversations to implement whatever is going to move forward. And so I don't know how we go about that, but this stuff will not happen on its own. It needs some support. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Chair, but that's what immediately came to my mind.
This is Commissioner Khoury. I have a question for you. When you say youth, what's the age range that we are talking about? Because you keep on talking only about students. If the range comes up to about 24 years, let's say, many of them have already graduated and are working in organizations, in youth organizations as directors, etc.
Is it 16 to 24?
Exactly, that's my understanding. And so it's the names, for instance, that I have sent are the directors of youth organizations that are 22 years old, 23 years old, 21 years old, not necessarily students.
Okay.
We'll check it out and confirm that the range for you, Chair.
Right. Right.
This is Commissioner Villapuerte. I'm on the Youth Commission at the moment, and it is, I confirmed with Janie that it is 16 to 24.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great. Thanks for the clarification.
I moved to expand that. I moved to expand that to about 50 so that I can participate and feel like a youth.
Let's make it 74.
Age is
young
only
at
a
heart.
number. What about age is only a number?
Discrimination.
Right. Well, that broadens our net definitely with regard to that that age range. Yes, Commissioner Anaya, you covered everything. And I just would like to reiterate the importance of having staff leadership dedicated from the Racial Justice, Equity, and Justice Office to provide leadership to these fluid young people.
And one more thing,
our leaders. Yes, sir.
One more thing, Chair. I provided, based on our conversation, I provided Andrew and yourself and our youth commissioner some samples of previous programs that I've seen in San Diego as a basis to look at to continue the dialogue and conversations about what potentially could happen, but also at the same time to show that in San Diego, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Things have happened here before. Things continue to happen, like with our partners with the ADL that do their work, and amongst other of you commissioners who do youth work, so that we don't have to fully reinvent the wheel. But I think part of it is education also for our young people as well, so that we can take what's been done, modify it to our current needs and desires.
Okay, great. Action item. We want to take that on for 2022. We want to make sure that Kate Chason's legacy of infrastructure has been addressed, and hopefully in the future we'll go into 22 with some actual town halls, workshops, some of the best practices that have been done to address issues within our schools, particularly.
And if I could just chime in too real quick, Chair Nash, we are still working on two things. One, we're working on finishing up an RFP to develop a youth program that's going to be facilitated at our office based on some conversations about programming and some of the the recommendations that came at the earlier meeting last year. And we hope to have that youth subcommittee actually participate in the selection process and the crafting of the RFP as we develop it. But we're getting close on that one. And then the other thing I just want to let you know is we're also going to be working with the Anti-Hate Coalition, with some of y'all are members on, to host a youth forum too. So we'll keep you posted on that and make sure we involve the youth subcommittee in the development of that.
Great. Because collaboration can make all this work. We're not a standalone. We're, our spirit is about collaboration. Thank you. Can we go to the Policies and Procedures Committee? Subcommittee. Have we met recently?
We have, and if Vice Chair Arton is still on the call, let me see if she's still here. She may have had to leave. And if not, Vanessa, would you like to provide a quick update on that if you're still on? I do see Vice Chair Arton, so maybe we can give her the floor.
Okay, great.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I wasn't sure if I'm supposed to do policy and procedures as well as legislative updates. So sorry, I was not prepared for this. But from what I recall, we had a conversation on how to better engage the community in reviewing policy and procedures for different departments. We had a few options on like what processes or what steps to take. And some of the conversations that we had were like engaging community, where in the process do we do that? When do we talk to the departments in order to get more insight on their policy and procedures, and so on and so forth. So we're kind of, my understanding is that we're kind of still working towards that, through that, in order to develop a more concrete steps to take in reviewing departmental policies at the county. But again, sorry, I was focused on the legislative subcommittee. I wasn't aware that I would provide an update on this. So if anyone else wants to add, or if I missed anything, please go ahead.
Can you update on the legislative while we have you?
Sure. Yeah, I was expecting that one. Yeah, so on the legislative subcommittee, we actually, our last meeting was last week. Nerea from the Office on Strategy and Intergovernmental Affairs came to our last few meetings. The County of San Diego is currently tracking state and federal legislation. Last time we met with Nerea, she has given us an update on specific bills that they were tracking at the state level. Those bills, from my understanding, are bills that went to the Assembly or Senate last year, but never made it to the governor's desk. So they're kind of tracking it to see where they go. Namely, those bills are AB 522, SB 20, and SB 45. So those were updates we got. She also notified us that things tend to move fast at times when it comes to legislation. So if anything comes up in between our monthly meetings, she will update Samu, our great staff, and he will send us an update on anything that we don't get to speak about during our meetings. Yeah, so we're in that process right now, just receiving updates from the office. I think we also mentioned that if there is any bills that, the subcommittee would like to discuss, we will be bringing those up to the group as well. But yeah, so right now, the Office of Strategy and Intergovernmental Affairs just tracking bills, and we're just waiting on their updates whenever anything comes to them or they receive any update.
Thank you. Thank you. In regards to the Policies and Procedures Subcommittee, we have Commissioner David Garcia, who has worked with the county for a long time. and we are blessed and honored that he has joined the commission. And one of the issues that near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure to all of our hearts, is the whole health and human services departments within the county, particularly with the goal of moving clients and residents from poverty to up to the middle class, if possible, and to serve as a safety net to the county, to county residents when we all fall on hard times. And I was having lunch with Commissioner Garcias, and he brought this to his attention, and we had some thoughts about it, and don't want to belabor our time today because I really want to move on to lifting up the MLK Day piece. But I wanted to just get it on your hearts and minds in regards to possibly the creation of a subcommittee, or maybe folding it into the policies and procedures committee at some point. But that is a piece, it's a large part of the county budget. And if there's some reforms that or areas of change that we feel that need to take place, that should be brought, that should also be brought to the attention of this commission, and also possibly to the departments that are involved. But just, kind of keep that in your mind, and we'll talk about it. I'll put it on the next agenda as an item for us to consider. So with that said, I wanted to move on to the lifting of the Martin Luther King Day, and just kind of hear from your hearts and minds. We're gonna end at noon. How many? Yes, Andrew, how many of our commissioners wanted to weigh in?
We actually only had one email from Commissioner Roberts. But before we get to that, if you don't mind, if we could actually take on just a quick housekeeping item on the teleconferencing, so we can make sure we get that put in before we lose quorum. All right. So just real quick, I'll share my screen. And much like we did last month, we just have to ratify your letter, Chair Nash, vote to continue teleconferencing. So let me get to that agenda item. And here's a motion. So pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E3, a motion to ratify prior AB 361 determinations made by the chair, signed on behalf of itself and all committees, and the commission has considered the circumstances of the state of the emergency, and state and local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing. And 3, authorize the chair to make the determination should the commission be unable to meet within the next 30 days. So we just have to take a quick vote on that specific motion.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Garcia. I'd like to second the motion or move the motion.
Move the motion? Gotcha. We need a second.
Second.
All right, thank you. We can vote. Commissioner Anaya?
Aye.
Commissioner Arton?
Aye.
Commissioner Chasen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Kate Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner De Los Rios?
Aye.
Commissioner Desert?
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott Santos?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Farouk? Commissioner Fowler? Commissioner Garcias?
Aye.
Commissioner Gillies?
Aye.
Edith Sanchez on behalf of Sheriff Gore? Commissioner Griffiths Jones? Commissioner Hassan?
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges?
Aye.
Commissioner Ismail?
Aye.
Commissioner Cordy?
Aye.
Commissioner Legaspi?
Aye.
Commissioner Murray Ramirez? Chair Nash?
Aye.
Commissioner Perez?
Aye.
Commissioner Herminia Ramirez?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryman? Commissioner Roberts? Commissioner Ruderman? Commissioner District Attorney Summer Stephan,
Aye.
Commissioner Villaforte.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes. Okay, now we can go on to uplifting MLK.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, we did have the one letter, but you could from Commissioner or email from Commissioner Roberts that she'd like us to read into the record since she's not in. But you could also feel free to allow members of the commission to speak on this item.
Great. Can you read Commissioner Roberts' letter first, and then we'll open the floor.
Okay, I will. I have to admit, when I was a kid, Dr. King was presented by the media as a disruptor and upsetter of the status quo, and I had trouble supporting his views. But as I grew and I listened to his words, his meaning, and I found the real beauty in his words. He was a human being, just a regular person that had a vision of a world that was not divided by features within us that mean nothing, do nothing to affect our character, the true measure of a person. My fear is that our work is becoming more and more divisive. We are separating people by their race, their gender, their religion. We are not evaluating people by their character, but rather their inherent characteristics that they have no choice over, the color of their skin. I salute Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the occasion of his 93rd birthday. Those were the words from Gina Roberts, Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you. The floor is now open for any other commissioners who would like to uplift Martin Luther King's Day.
Eleanor Evans, Commissioner. As an undergraduate student at San Diego State University, it was very, very challenging in terms of students being able to get housing, students being able to participate fully into college life at every level, including the fact we had professors who basically would tell us, as Black students that, I don't want you in my class, not knowing the background of anyone, or I don't think you're smart enough for this class. Again, not knowing the background. And I was approached one day by the former President Emeritus, President Love, which is a wonderful name to have. He asked me, about the campus situation. At that time, I was the co-chair for Congress of Racial Equality. I very bluntly told him, he said, well, what can we do to make changes? And we talked about a couple of things. And I guess he already had some action because one of the things I strongly suggest is that we have Martin Luther King come to the campus and speak to, to the community. And he made that happen. He made that happen. It was expensive. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King came. And I need to also tell you at that time, CORE was not a campus club, quote unquote, and ASB refused to recognize us. When King came, Dr. King came, he made a speech, and during his speech, we received notification that the student body had changed its mind, that they were recognized as a full entity on campus. As a consequence of that speech, students were able to get housing around campus. And there was a policy, an unwritten policy that if you lived in the dorm, well, your dorm mate had to be the same ethnicity as you. And that disappeared. Okay. And the fact that students on campus really start to feel like they really were a part of San Diego State University. And the fact that as a consequence, one of the things that Dr. Love was attempting to implement was to be the Educational Opportunities Program for students, which would enable more BIPOC students to attend college. And he was meeting a lot of, even though the governor had signed the bill, he was meeting a lot of resistance. And with King coming, Dr. King coming, all of that dissipated. So for me, having the experience of meeting and talking with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, having the experience of working with him in terms of San Diego State, it just changed the campus and empowered, I think, all of us who were involved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Nash, we have Commissioner Desert, Commissioner Nyack, Commissioner Hodges.
In that order, please.
Good morning, everyone. I think one of the enduring legacies of Dr. King is the lesson of solidarity, how we stand up and for other communities when an injury happens, so that an injury to one is an injury to all. I didn't see this on the agenda today, so Chair Nash invited me to share these comments during this time. Commissioner Hodges' verbal and written statements which disparaged our transgender and broader LGBTQ community, we all discussed in previous meetings, are antithetical to our mission here at the Human Relations Commission. In our last meeting, when Commissioner Hodges refuses to resign, we voted to explore next steps to remove him. I was surprised to not see this on our agenda today. I'd ask that it's included in the agenda for future meetings. Reminder, those next steps were twofold. One, we wanted to launch a public campaign to call upon the Board of Supervisors to remove Commissioner Hodges. Both Supervisor Anderson, who has the power to remove him as he appointed him, and other members of the Board of Supervisors who we would ask to call on Supervisor Anderson for the removal. The second step we voted on was to amend our bylaws to give this commission the power to remove a member whose actions are antithetical to our mission. So I'd like to help our commission here and follow what we voted on. I have a next step for commissioners, so please join me in a call to action. I have a letter prepared for you all that makes this really easy. I'm asking for 5 minutes of your time this week to contact the members of the Board of Supervisors and ask for the removal of Commissioner Hodges. I will send that email right after my remarks. It's all written for you, including a summary of the events that have happened here. Asking for 5 minutes of your time so that we can follow through and ensure that an injustice that happened here, attacking our transgender community and attacking our broader LGBTQ community here in our own commission meetings, is an action that we follow through on. So stay tuned for that in your inbox. And then I would ask Chair Nash to include how we amend our bylaws and next steps on that action point. Thank you all so much. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact.
Good afternoon. On the agenda item and specific to Dr. Kane, kind of in the spirit of what fellow Commissioner Desert just put there about our community supporting each other and working together in the spirit of with Dr. King. I want to just read a brief telegram that and I did use the word telegram that Dr. King wrote to Cesar Chavez during one of his fasts. Off those comments that Commissioner Desert said, and just kind of my general feeling is this is what our work is about supporting each other when we do see injustice. So I want to read this real quick. This is from Dr. King to Cesar Chavez. I am deeply moved by your courage in fasting as your personal sacrifice for justice through nonviolence. Your past and present commitment is eloquent, testimony to the constructive power of nonviolent action and the destructive impotence of violent reprisal. You stand today as a living example of the Gandhian tradition with its great force for social progress and its healing spiritual powers. My colleagues and I commend you for your bravery, salute you for your indefatigable work against poverty and injustice, and pray for your health and your continuing service as one of the outstanding men of America. The plight of your people and ours is so grave that we all desperately need the inspiring example and effective leadership you have given. Signed, Martin Luther King Jr., President of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Good morning, my father's children. I like a quote from Martin Luther King as he said, "Use me, God, and show me how to take who I am, who I want to be, and what I can do, and use it for a purpose greater than myself." God has given us a fingerprint that no one else has, so that he can imprint that no one else can. Everything that I do, I try to do according to the word of God. And if this committee wants to go against the word of God, that's the idea of the committee. So I'm here, and until the Lord says different, I'm here. I love you all, and I hope and pray that you have a Shana Tova, a good year.
Commissioner Court.
Thank you, Andrew. Actually, there is, I always remember a statement said by Martin Luther King. It's not the violence of the few that scares me, it's the silence of the many. And it relates a lot to me personally, especially as an American of Palestinian heritage. When I see so many people silent with respect to what is happening to my people. But that really resonated with me, has been resonating with me since the early 70s, as they say, when I became aware of that statement. Thank you.
I see Vice Chair Warsaw and Arton's hand.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I don't know. Oh, yeah, Commissioner Evans still here. I wanted to thank her for sharing this story about Martin Luther King coming to SDSU. As a former SDSU student, it was great to hear about that story. Also, as an EOP student, when I was at SDSU, it was great to hear about that story. And thank you, everyone else, for sharing. I think what is so phenomenal about Dr. Martin Luther King's message is that it transcends, it's not just about race, but you can relate it to in so many ways. For those of you who don't know, I grew up in a separate country where, it was a Black country where we didn't have the concept of race per se. But coming to the US, for me, it was very interesting to see, people, hate each other because of their race. And then being a Muslim on the top of that, right? I remember barely speaking English and being called a terrorist, and I didn't know what that meant, to be honest with you, the first time I heard, because I didn't understand English. But I remember discovering, I think I was in 6th grade when I heard about, I Have a Dream, and a speech from Dr. Martin Luther King. And it's a great message. It was so uplifting. I think for a lot of us, despite our background and, whatever issue we were facing at that moment or we are facing, I think Dr. Martin Luther King's message speaks to us, and it's very uplifting and, encouraged us to continue. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you all so much for sharing.
And Madam Chair, we have one member of the public who wishes to speak. Not seeing any other commissioners' hands up, but we have Francine Maxwell. Her hand is up. And Francine, you should be able to unmute and speak. Let me know if you're still, okay, there we go.
Good afternoon, Francine. Oh, I'm sorry, still good morning. Francine Maxwell, Chairwoman, Black Men and Women United. I want to make sure that there's clarity before a call to action is called, because right now in the times that we're in, we want to be careful that we're showing division and call to action and we're not on one accord. this man of God had a duly sworn right to speak his opinion. And I do believe that the sentence started off, I love all human beings. So I want us to be extremely careful and intentional that we share all information and expeditious. So what I just heard was somebody wants to do a call to action, not only to Joel Anderson, the County Board of Supervisors, but to the community. So make sure that you lay the foundation for the community, because this can get ugly. And so I want to be sure that we have some Wi-Fi deficient communities. And so being that the county is duly sworn and has taxpayer dollars, that you make sure that our community media, our Filipino press, our La Presa, our voice and so please make sure that the community gets the foundation, and our community papers, La Presa, Filipino Press, the Voice and Viewpoint, GOD1 Radio, Voice of San Diego. Put your stuff in the paper before you do a call to action so that the whole community gets the foundation. We know that Pastor Hodges' first sentence was, I love all human beings. So I don't know what's going on because I have not had access to all the documents. So please, before we do a full-scale hardcore press and bring the whole community into it, let's break off in a little bit of town halls and have some conversation, because our region does not need this right now. Thank you.
And it looks like Chair Nash, we have DA Summer Stephan.
I waited because I know I don't want to take up too much time, but I wanted to share that a message that I sent out to the 1,000-member team at the DA's office, that I think that Dr. Martin Luther King would be pleased to see that we have a committee on racial equity that's thriving and is having really honest conversations about the use of our power. So it was really timely to send out a message quoting from Dr. King, where I said, power at its best is love, implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. And telling my team, this is a reminder of the power that is entrusted to our team and the responsibility to use it faithfully to implement justice and goodness. So it's amazing that there's always a quote that's perfect that Dr. Martin Luther King has imparted to us in whatever field, profession that we're in. I honor and thank him for that.
Thank you. Any other commissioners want to weigh in?
Commissioner Legaspi.
Good afternoon. As directly involved with that incident, I would like to give a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King too. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. We are Human Relations Commission. We would like to promote a positive community relationship. So I think we have to weigh in the impact. I am gravely offended by the word of abomination. And so I'm still carrying it in my heart. I'm still very much offended. Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, I want to make the last comment before we leave today. We opened up this commission meeting with an issue regarding homelessness and poverty and inhumane treatment of medically compromised seniors living on the street. And Martin said, a second evil which plagues the modern world is that of poverty. Like a monstrous octopus, it projects its nagging, prehensile tentacles and lands and villages all over the world. Almost 2/3 of the people of the world go to bed hungry at night. They're undernourished, ill-housed, and shabbily clad. Many of them have no houses or beds to sleep in. Their only beds are the sidewalks of the cities and the dusty roads of villages. Most of these poverty-stricken children of God have never seen a physician or a dentist. He said that in 1964. He also said there is nothing new about poverty. And I'm just going to put in there in quotes, homelessness. What is new, however, is that we have the resources to get rid of it. He said that in 1964. I bring that to your attention. The words of our own Dr. Martin Luther King. On that note, I would like to bid a farewell to all of you, and you have a great week. Some of you I will be calling right away with some concerns and issues. I do want to point out, Commissioner Desert, that we did form a bylaws committee at our last meeting. I wish you all farewell. Call me if you need anything. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.